Hello again. I hope you've all kept well. This week we're going to look at something in particular to do with the Exeter Assay Office, which is the bright cutting, the style and the fashion for the bright cutting of Exeter flatware when it came in about 1775. And I'm looking at this again and in particular because we've now got the close-up lens. So after I've done a sort of brief introduction and talked you through these spoons, we can look at all the features in detail. Bright cutting comes in silver because up until about 1770, steel wasn't hard enough to carve or sculpt the surface of a silver spoon. So here's a nice Exeter bright cut spoon that we'll look at in detail a bit later. Now, before you had the hardened steel, all you could really do in terms of engraving was draw on a piece of silver. There are some fantastic examples, I mean, absolutely breathtaking, but they are sort of graphic designs. They are scenes, delicate, fine engraving, thin, fine lines. When a stronger, firmer steel is introduced, a harder steel, in about 1765, 1770, it's developed. All these engraving tools then started not just to engrave lines on the surface of a piece of silver, but to carve it, to sculpt it. And as they were doing that, they were polishing the surface that it left behind. Now, it's important to remember, because we live in days of electricity, that all of this stuff was viewed primarily in the evening during dining, social events, in candlelight. And candlelight does different things. I mean, try it if you've got some silver and there aren't any long curtains that are going to catch fire. Try it one evening, lay the table and just put a candelabra or a couple of candlesticks in, and you will see that the silver changes its appearance. It becomes wonderful, ethereal, mercurial, all the big words. But also this bright cut engraving, which at the time would have been breathtaking, jewel-like, it would have picked up all the different reflected light. It would have sparkled like jewels. It almost would have been like having diamond encrusted flatware. You get bright cut engraving on a huge amount of London silver. I do have one London spoon which we'll look at as a comparison. And the London bright cut engraving, we'll look at all this in detail in the follow-up detail video. All of this is quite restrained and quite elegant and quite controlled. In the provincial centres, York, very, very little bright cutting happens in York. Exeter and Newcastle, lots of bright cutting. And Chester, well, there isn't enough Chester flatware to really tell, but very little bright cut Chester flatware anyway. Okay, maybe you might find a pair of sugar tongs if you're lucky, and they will have a little bit of bright cutting on them. But the West Country and also the north of England, Newcastle, absolutely mad for it. And it smothers the flatware from about 1770 right up to the end of the Exeter Assay Office in 1883 with some Channel Islands examples. But basically Old English pattern flatware from Exeter, there's a 9 in 10 chance it's going to be bright cut engraved. So you get examples. This is one of a pair of exceptional tablespoons and the most decorative. And remember, we're seeing all of this engraving 220, 250 years later. It's had all that time to wear and polish, and for all these little, let's call them facets, really, all these little engraved facets up and down to be filled in with tarnish and polish. But remember, when it was brand new, each little mark on this would have been like a mirror, as bright and reflective. You do get into the 19th century, I said, bright cut engraving on Exeter flatware. It becomes a little more uncommon. The majority of Exeter fiddle pattern flatware you'll see will be actually just engraved with a monogram or a crest, apart from those items supplied to the Channel Islands. And they supplied quite a lot of flatware to the Channel Islands. And there, all of this engraving in that very West Country tradition would have been done on the island by the retailing silversmith who normally puts their mark on the back. And we'll look at that as well. And we'll also look at one pretty exceptional Exeter stroke Channel Islands tablespoon, which I've only recently found, which has got a wonderful military trophies engraved on it. So that's as much as we're going to look at in the short version. Watch the next video and we'll have a look at all of this in detail, and that would be hopefully allow you to pick out an Exeter bright cut spoon from a table full of London bright cut spoons. It's all about getting your eye in. So I'll see you in a moment.